Welcome to YOLK Rehashed Generation Next with Larry Tazuma and Sommer Nguyen. YOLK is back.
Welcome you guys to the YOLK, OG YOLK Generation Next podcast. We are very excited to have GILLIAN MCKERCHER as the director of Lucky Star. This is a brand new film coming out this May. Actually, we're really excited because usually we get to talk about films that have already been released, but this film is coming out this May. And we're also very excited to have Terry Chen, who's been in many, many projects, TV, film, all sorts of things. You're a veteran actor. Thank you for joining us, Terry. And you also have a series that's out right now on the CW called Wild Cards, which is great. So thank you, Terry. How are you guys doing today?
Doing great, Larry. Thanks for having us.
Jillian, you're coming in from, you said Calgary right now?
Yeah, that's right. That's where I'm based right now.
How about you, Terry? Where are you?
Vancouver. I'm based out of Vancouver.
Gotcha. All right. So first and foremost, can you give us a little synopsis of Lucky Star, Jillian? Sorry.
All good. So Lucky Star is a family drama about a father who gets scammed and then returns to playing poker to make the money back in secret from his family. And Lucky Star is set in Calgary in a winter time. And we're really just seeing what this family does to survive and the secrets they keep from each other, but through it all, loving each other.
Right. And it seems like the family, they know that the father has this thing, has a history with gambling.
Yes, the family knows. And I think, at least in my experience, when you love somebody who struggles with something, so not just gambling, but anything, there is a period of time where you are denying it. You're denying the signs, I think, because it's very painful to admit when something is not going well.
Yeah, especially to your father. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think they know he's out late. Like, I think there's a conversation in the scene where Lucky, who's played by Terry Chen, and Olivia Cheng, she says, "I know you're not just fixing iPhones all night," because he has a repair store, an electronics repair store. So she already has some suspicions. I think the daughter has some suspicions too, but it's just, when can we out in the open say this is a problem?
Right. So I'm Japanese, but I'm from Seattle, Washington, and I feel like I know at least the father and mother pretty well. I grew up in the I grew up with a lot of Chinese, Cantonese, Toisan friends. I played basketball with the Seattle Chinese Athletic Association. I knew a lot of Kaidois and Kainuis, and so I feel like I know Terry's character really well. Lucky, I feel like I know Noel really well, and then basically a lot of these guys grew up and became adults, but I feel like this Lucky character didn't quite reach adulthood. What do you think? I don't know. What do you think, Terry? What was your character study like when you're coming up with Lucky?
The story's compelling. It's this family drama, and all the members of the family have their little secrets. And what makes it really special is that Lucky is not a one-dimensional character. He's a fully fleshed out human being, and that was what initially drew me to Jillian's writing. With her development and her dedication to the story, I was so grateful to jump on and flush him out, because Lucky's a character that sort of threads this needle of being a terrible father on one side of the spectrum, to trying to do the right thing, not fall prey to his vulnerabilities, but at the same time, has flashes of trying to do the best he can for his family. And that's not always the right thing. But this is what drew me to the character initially, and I think it lends to just the writing and the incredible development that Gillian put this story through.
Yeah. I was very touched by your portrayal of this guy just lying through his teeth, to get his friends to lend him money and just
Oh yeah, it was inventive. It was inventive seeing that scene about
yeah.
at the car.
Perspective, Larry. He wasn't lying. He was giving a perspective, a story, and people can have the choice to listen or not listen. There's no judgment.
Right.
I mean, listen, Lucky and Gillian and I had this conversation early on. She wanted the audience to have empathy for this character, but at the same time, he's doing some pretty dastardly things. And that's sort of revealed in the first 2 minutes. We know exactly who this guy is in the first 2 minutes of the film. So, the trick is to sort of keep the audience on his side throughout to the end. And again, it's a tribute to Gillian's talent as a writer to weave that narrative all the way through. And it also speaks to the very specific area. You talk about growing up in Seattle. That's very close to Vancouver. And I was born and raised in Alberta, but I grew up in Vancouver as well. So this Asian diaspora, the story it was interesting. We screened it in Calgary last week, and we had this question about language and about how there's a little bit of Cantonese mixed in there, but it's not at the forefront. There's a lot of English, but this is also a story, a generational story, second, third generation. So you're going through very specific context in terms of environment and time in that environment as well.
Well, I enjoyed
Gillian.
Yeah.
Go
So
ahead, Summer.
this is why Zoom is not fun for me. I enjoyed the film the way, especially because I got to see it live. It's not always the gift of seeing an independent film in a theater. That's incredibly like an amazing gift to see. And also because I grew up in Virginia, not many stories about Asians. And so I started thinking I was white for like a long time. And then it's like I go to California and then I'm like, oh my gosh, there's so many Asian people here. And so I appreciate the fact that Gillian wrote this from beginning to end with characters that kind of like I want a redeeming quality about them. And I don't want to spoil it because it's coming out May 13th. But I really love the fact that it has growth, the buildup of growth and experiences, and everybody's experiencing connected emotionally, and not just because they're family, but because they're really paying attention. And I'm sorry to make this too long, but since I have a family member who is a consummate gambler in reality, it was touching to see that. So thank you.
Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
It's a part of our culture. I think gambling is a part of Asian. It just is, right? And it's not something that's spoken of. I mean, especially that experience that you had, very much like my experience. I wore cowboy boots to high school. I was having a constant identity crisis, because we also moved back and forth from the West Coast back to Alberta. So I'd be this, like 10, 11, 12-year-old skater from Vancouver moving back to Alberta, going to junior high school wearing cowboy boots, so it's a very specific environment, but it's also very relatable what these characters are going through, to the greater extent and to the macro. And our screening in LA, our screening in Santa Barbara, and Gillian was just down in San Diego last week. It's interesting to hear how the audience receives the story when you take to different parts of North America and how they receive it.
Gillian, was this a collaborative process for you in the writing? Were you talking to different people? I know your mom's Chinese, is that correct?
Yeah, my mom's Chinese. She came to Canada when she was about 8 years old from Hong Kong. And the family, when you said Toisan, like that's where my family is originally from. Like my mom speaks both Cantonese and Toisan. So Collaborative. Yeah, I think I'm a collaborative person. My process is I like to talk about things and bounce ideas off of people, but I actually I've had the idea for a long time, and I developed it when I went to the Canadian Film Center as a director resident in 2019. The following year in 2020, I was fortunate to get additional development funding through the Canadian Film Center Netflix Development Accelerator. And that's what
Mhm.
put me in touch with Terry, because our casting director, who put together the table read, Larissa Meyer, she also put together the film eventually, but she reached out to Terry to see if I could get feedback on the script through this table read with some Asian performers. And that was an amazing experience for me to hear the language, like the dialogue, and to possibly, do some soft casting and
Mm.
then hear what people had to say. So I'm just very open to what's working. And so it's not just a concept in my brain, because when we're watching a film, it's sort of a documentary of like theatrical acting, right? So concept in brain to like script, and then
Mm.
like what is the live feedback? And so that table read, which then introduced me to Terry and kind of started the ball rolling to make Lucky Star, like, yeah, it was very collaborative.
Mm.
How many years did it take you for?
5 years from really putting fingers to keyboard to
Mm.
actually, screening the film in Vancouver. When we knew when we had our festival screening, but Terry and I and Olivia screened the film at the Sound Post Studio, Elemental Post in Vancouver. So about 5 years.
Mm.
Crazy.
Wow. That's a long time to work on one single project.
Yeah. Well, she
Yeah,
was
doing
working on other things. I saw your music videos and your short film about suicide. And it's like you got some heavy subjects. So
Heavy
Jill,
subjects. I mean, your previous film was called Circle of Steel, which is also a very heavy subject, isn't that correct?
Yeah, I was trying to be light about it. I feel like I mischaracterized it when we were promoting the film. I'm like, it's funny, and everyone's like, this isn't very funny. Yeah, that film was about layoffs for sort of late stage capitalism, oil and gas,
Mm.
big offices that
Right.
was happening in Calgary at the time. I don't know. I was just trying to digest my experience and the experience of so many people, this fraught experience that
Mm.
um, can feel very isolating when you're going through it and you're like, I want to get laid off, but I don't want to get laid off. And uh, so that was Circle of Steel.
In Seattle, I have some friends. I mean, because I think it's because of the American Indian casinos being so close, and also the online gambling just being right in your face all the time. I mean, there's just so many advertisements when you're watching football or something. Um, and it just seems like there's just so much temptation to do what's involved in your film, you know, Lucky Star, that it's I hope a lot of people get to see your film. I really do. Is there any uh, is there any plans to go beyond Canada? That's what I'm trying to say.
So we have a video on demand release in the States as well,
Mm.
beginning May 13th. So
Mm.
we're working on a few one-off theatricals, but
Mm.
for the time being, May 13th is where people can watch the film. It is my second feature film. So Circle of Steel was my first feature film. That was I'm really proud of that film, but it was micro budget. We made it for like $150,000 and
yeah.
we shot it in 16 days. But I felt like if I didn't make that film, I was going to die. Not
Um,
truly, but just spiritually.
Uh-huh.
how long did it take you to shoot Lucky Star?
18 days.
Oh my
18
God, you're
days.
saying the same thing?
Yeah, well, I guess we had that one pickup day, but essentially it was an 18-day shoot.
It feels cold when you're watching it. The temperature feels cold. Was it really cold? I mean, I saw the snow. Was that real snow?
That was not special effects. It was that cold. I'm
Okay.
glad you said, yeah.
I mean, I've heard of the Canadian winters. I'm from Seattle, so it's always been cold, during the winters of Seattle. Yeah, it felt icy.
I mean, the weather and the setting, Alberta, Calgary specifically, is unto itself a character of the film, and
Mm,
that isolation lends to this despair that that the characters, that a lot of the whole family feels, in one aspect or another, and that search for just some sort of hope. It also, I think, speaks to the time that they're going through, where Lucky specifically is out driving in the isolated, dead of winter cold into absolutely nowhere, but it's meditative for him.
mm,
It's also a tribute, just practically speaking, in terms of our crew, and Gillian, knows this intimately well. We have world-class crew here in Alberta, in Canada, but specifically in Alberta, the crew that we were working with, you're working in minus 30, 40 degrees Celsius weather. I can't remember what that is in Fahrenheit, but it's under time constraints, and a lot of hard days. But man, we've got some amazing crews up here in Canada, and especially out in Alberta.
oh man, you guys ever make it down to California? It's,
Gillian, I was curious, when you wrote the characters out, and you didn't you had a soft casting. What does that mean? Like, did Terry just accidentally go into it, or because
Well, no, it was intentional.
okay,
Like, yeah, it was like, who would you like to be in this role? And I was like, Terry Chen. And I've been
oh,
thinking about him for a
oh,
while in the lead role, but I think when you're putting together an independently financed project, and also I would consider myself emerging at that time,
hmm
you're afraid to dream that loud or out loud because
yeah,
it can feel prohibitive, right?
you don't
So
want to jinx it, yeah.
Harry, and it just was really fortunate. He
mm,
said yes. And so when I say soft casting, it was just we didn't have funding at the time. We did that table read, but it
Mhm.
was like, here's the project, you're reading for the part. And so then when we did get funding a year later, I
Mhm.
already had an established connection with Terry. We had seen each other on Zoom.
Mhm.
It felt a little more accessible than just cold contacting him through a casting agent. So,
mm,
and I feel like whenever I read stories about independent film, it's those connections and that visible passion for a project which brings the right people together. And
Mhm.
once Terry said yes, then I really wanted to work with Olivia Cheng.
Oh yeah.
But and I actually didn't know that Olivia and Terry had known each other before.
mm.
Once I had Terry, then that adds legitimacy to the project. And then, writing a letter to Olivia and saying Terry Chen is on board, it just sort of everything starts. The momentum starts. The momentum.
I watched another podcast. Of course, I'm not gonna. I don't know. I don't remember which one, but I saw that Terry mentioned it took a year, and I was wondering, Terry, how do you wait? Like you don't think about it, and then it came back to you for the offer. How do you approach those kinds of projects that you kind of have to wait, and there's no sure thing, and because you understand the whole financial uh, search that they go for, the financial.
POTG, part of the game. That's film, man. Like, you just, as an artist, you try not to bank on one thing, and you're constantly trying to set yourself up for the next project. But you know, I'm very grateful because I have a great team of agents, and on this particular project, it was brought to me through a casting director who has a relationship with my agent out in Toronto. I was out in Montreal at the time, I think, doing another project, and I did the table read during lunch, because I remember specifically sitting in my trailer, um, doing the read through, and I just have an affinity, like I'm sure a lot of actors do, to the auteur director, combo. It's my last few independent films have been of that dynamic, and I was very happy to go through the read through and the process with Gillian, because her writing is what struck me first and foremost. And at a certain point, you know, as an actor, you get these offers and these asks about table reads. Sometimes you say yes, sometimes you say no, if you have the time to do it. I love the idea of mentoring, helping fledgling directors or young directors come up. Everybody needs a chance. You know, I was given a chance as a young actor. So from that initial meeting, and then as you said or put it, waiting, it's not really a waiting game. You just kind of forget about it. You continue on with the other jobs that you have if you're lucky enough to work. And it was about a year and a half later that my agent had called me back and said, "Hey, listen, this project Lucky Star got funding, got off the ground." That in itself is a very clear indication of the dedication and commitment that Gillian and her partner at Kinosum, Guillaume Callier, have to bring this story to light. So, you know, some people just don't have that diligence to follow through, and they followed through with everything they said creatively, financially, that they said that they would do. Did we have $10 million for this picture? No. But this picture, you know, has a voice. It's finding an audience through these limited run theatrical runs that we're having. And, you know, we greatly appreciate all eyes and you guys, you know, taking the time to talk to us about it. That's the struggle of independent film these days, whether you're Gillian McKercheur or Viggo Mortensen, or who, you know, the other directors that I've worked with over the last few years. As an independent filmmaker, it doesn't matter who you are, it's a slog. So we have to, you know, fight hard and do the grassroots work to get this film out. And it has a voice. You know, Gillian as a young artist has a voice, and I love her specificity. And the fact that she can shoot stuff like this in 18 days speaks to her commitment and her vision and focus of what she wants to see.
Yeah, that's how long were the shoot days each day? Like it varied?
We had kids on set. I mean, Gillian, like it was very reasonable.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, if I can, I mean, I can't pull the curtain back too much, but
Poppy.
we had a really good group of producers. So yeah, there's Guillaume, Nicola, Wah, Amanda Verhagen, and Matt Drake. And we just, before we shot, we just had to say the only way that this is going to work on this budget level in 18 days is we have to aim for like 10-hour camera days. So that's what, you know, we didn't always make that, but we certainly couldn't go, we could basically without, it's kind of boring, but we can't go overtime. Like, because once you go overtime, it's like you have, you know, your 30 to 40 people on set and everybody's going into overtime, double, you know, time and a half. So it was very clear that we needed to keep things tight. So it was very reasonable days, which actually I think is better in the long run. It keeps people focused. People don't get like exhausted, keeps like energy good. Once you're working like, you know, 16-hour days for even 18 days, you're just like bent. It's hard.
How did you work with seasoned actors? Like you've seen their work before, Gillian. How did that feel for you?
Okay, like on one hand, you're like, I don't want to be a suck up and just be like some weirdo fan. So you have to kind of get that energy out of the way and like acknowledge, like maybe on the first meeting, you're like, and then you just focus on the work. And I think through just the exercise of focusing on the work, you know, take after take or conversation after conversation, you do begin to develop a relationship. And the beautiful thing about filmmaking, and it's something I find very sacred, is you have to have a lot of trust between the director and the performers, and you have to really let your vulnerability in. And it's all about like feelings, and yes, there's a lot of technique, but it's also just like reading the room and sensing things. And in time, you do develop a relationship. And sometimes it can be hard, right? Like when you're maybe miscommunicating or you're not sure what you're trying to there's just a misalignment. But I think on Lucky Star, we were really lucky. All of us like trusted each other. And
Oh,
the most seasoned actors like Terry, Olivia, Andrew, they understand that process and can like lean on all of their experience to get into it faster. I think that's what I noticed.
oh, yeah, you froze a bit.
Oh, shit,
Yeah.
sorry.
Your audio stayed on.
Oh,
Yeah,
good.
that's
Glad
important.
to feel better.
Yeah. Did you guys have rehearsals? Sorry, I love on-set experiences and stuff. Did you have, or just filming process?
We did one table read.
That's it? Oh my God, that's amazing.
Great.
So it's almost like, did you guys improv a little bit, or you went off script?
Yeah, we did a little bit. I mean, the script itself was, I felt, very tight. But again, Jillian just spoke to it. When you have experience on set, I think you can just cut to the quick. And in terms of the vision, it was just very clearly communicated by Jillian and Charles Hamilton, our DP, who worked closely with Jillian for the look of the film, what we were going for, and shots were very specific every day, and if there was an issue, they pivoted very well as a team. That was, for me, coming in as someone who's been in the industry for a while, really fantastic to see, and just to speak to, I guess, really just the sensibilities when it comes to cinema. You can get that sense talking to someone in the first 5 minutes. I got that sense talking to Jillian in the first Zoom meeting we had years ago. So it was kind of immediate, not immediate, but it was a very short decision-making process to jump on board when they came with the phone call. But it's a beautiful evolution to work with people and have the opportunity to let something like that breathe over a little while. Yes, 5 years, I'm sure, for Jillian is a long time to develop something, but to see something come from concept to creation, I've seen it with other filmmakers before, is an incredible feat. But yeah, you get that sense very quickly when you have any sort of conversation about cinema with someone and before with them.
I do want to add, there is sort of we didn't cast for chemistry, like we did no table reads, or sorry, we did no screen tests, sorry. But we did do we had a dinner. We had a Chinese or a Lunar New Year dinner where we invited everyone together, and it was the first time the family was together. And I did think that helped break the ice just to have everyone together. So by that point we had done a few scenes between Carrie and Connie, who plays Grace, his eldest, Lucky's eldest daughter.
Mm-hmm.
So it was nice to have that experience together, and my whole family was there too. So I think, again, coming back to the place of vulnerability, just like sort of trying to cut through all of the like formality and just being like, all right, this is who we are. Let's get to it. We know each other. I know it really helped out the youngest daughter, Summerlie. This was her first on-screen performance, to know Carrie, Olivia, and Connie ahead of time, so she could have some sass or feel comfortable with them. I think those things speak on set, and then I don't have to do like a million takes, so we can keep to our tight timeline.
Yeah, Terry has worked with kids before, and especially in Expanse, because I remember him as Dr. Praxming. It is a really rough name, Praxming. But did you kind of see that in him and like, oh yeah, Terry knows how to work with kids. It's
I
awesome.
wasn't I wasn't thinking about kids, but Terry's just his warmth. Terry is a warm person. You want He's perfectly cast for Lucky, because even when Lucky is doing tough things, you want to root for him. And it's just because of like, I mean, I guess this is a question about acting. Like, how does Terry's essence inform Lucky, or does it inform it? This is like an eternal question, I guess. I don't know. But whenever I watch Terry on screen, he has a warmth, and I just find him very likable, and I want to be around you. And I think that's important. If we're going to spend 85 minutes with this leading man, we need to like him to an extent. And so I could push his character places, and I felt that the audience would go there too.
Hmm.
Yeah, relatable characters. You had relatable characters in it. And the summer name was awesome. Go ahead, Larry. Sorry.
No, one of my first questions were those tattoos real for Terry? And they obviously are because you lifted your arms a few times.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that kind of, yeah, exactly. I gotta say, I've known a lot of actors in Los Angeles, and I don't know many who have ever taken that risk of having tattoos fully visible in Los Angeles. So I gotta give you credit for taking that sort of risk or anything like that, in terms of being a full-time actor.
And
Has
in
that,
the story.
yeah,
Yeah, and in the story. I like the
and in
fact
the story too,
yeah.
yeah, because you don't,
Well,
yeah.
thanks to Jillian, she was open to Lucky having the tattoos. We spoke about it in terms of giving Lucky a past, and him and Noelle are you know probably 20 years deep into the marriage, and Grace is at least that old, so that they have a history of coming from somewhere, and they were probably the cool couple back in the day, and past Lucky's past his prime now, and but he was probably someone who was in the scene for a little bit, and just had a family, and kind of faded out of it, and now is just trying to survive. So thankfully, Jillian was open to playing, most, if not all, of the tattoos that I have. As an artist, I was asked early on by an agent, when are you going to stop getting tattoos, Terry? And I ignorantly referred to Johnny Depp at the time. I was like, well, Johnny Depp has a bunch of tattoos, and she, quipped immediately, and rightfully so, saying, you're not Johnny Depp. So I was like, oh, fair. But I knew getting into being an actor, I think I was in my early mid-20s, that it was something I wanted to commit to. It was a conscious choice to get into the industry.
Nice.
I understood somehow, even being so ignorant, that there was a lot of things I had to sacrifice in terms of, time and commitment to being an actor. And for whatever reason, getting tattoos was a way of self-expression for me, coming from a place like Alberta, where I was getting picked on and looked at for being a visible minority. And getting tattooed was like, okay, well, I'll give you something to look at if you want to look at something. So it was a way of expressing myself at a very early age. I ran away from home a lot, and it was just, I was pretty rebellious, and left home at, 17, 18. And again, if the industry was like, you're just going to be a gang member, you're just going to be the tattoo thug guy, or you're not going to work because you have too many tattoos, I probably would have pivoted and done something else. Unfortunately, I'm a big dummy, so I'm not good at school. I'm not good at medicine or math. I failed math twice in school, in French, once in English. Apparently numbers are the same, whatever language you calculate them in. But the industry has been very kind to me over the last 25 plus years, and I've been able to fly under the radar very nicely, which is actually, I think, helped me kind of jump into different roles where I'm not pegged as just this one guy because I look like this or I look like that. And my philosophy behind the tattoos, where if they're too distracting, then I just have to work harder to be a better actor. I have to,
Right.
do the work. I have to work harder than the next guy. I have to work harder, my script analysis and my character development in my process, and everybody has their own. So I'm very grateful, at 50 now to be able to do what I love to do, and still, kind of retain a part of myself, which is what I think artists subjectively bring to every piece of art that they do, whether you're a painter, musician, actor, our writer, our lived experiences speak to and inform our art, right? So it's a very reciprocal process. It's not just a one-way thing.
Right.
I gotta say, but the shows that he's talking about, he got The Last of Us. When you play the militant against you play like parental guidance, or even in all, I love Last of Us too. Sorry.
Yeah, Juan,
Um,
yeah, he was the school principal at
yes, yeah.
Firefly
Yeah,
School. Yeah.
you pick this road or that, like you want this. I don't remember lines very well. Okay, so also you had the Viggo Mortensen, just to quickly get into it before we come back to Gillian. The Falling movie, I actually saw it, and so I'm impressed that you went to, you're like almost like a Viggo, like I don't want to compare, but it's like you take a lot of different characters. You, and so all your characters have, through your years, you had so many different um, personalities. Did you always save some personality, or do you like, how do you say it? You take it off. I don't know how because you played a good,
Yeah,
you played a gay character, so
yeah. I was again. I've been very fortunate enough. People have cast me in a diversity of roles, and I'm so grateful for it. Times have changed, decade over decade, and it seems like you need license to do a lot of these things now. And um, again, the industry just sort of responds and dictates that. We're in another very tough time of the industry, but again, you have to love to do it. As Jillian spoke to before, she had to make that first film, or she would have died. And that's hyperbole, of course, but you have to have that passion inside you for the work. You have to feel like if you don't do it, you will die. Because otherwise, somebody else next to you will have that passion and they'll stick it out longer than you, right?
That's fair. Yeah. And it was about dementia. It was scary having Lance Henriksen yell at you.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah. It was a very heavily themed
yeah.
a film. But again, Viggo Mortensen's first film that he wrote and first film that he directed. That was back in 2019. We released in 2020. But again, another auteur director dynamic that was a very incredible experience.
Was it different being directed by an actor?
That's a good question, actually. Yes. Yes, every director has their particular style. We had very different challenges on that set than we did from Lucky Star. Every film does. Lance is quite advanced in age. God bless his heart and his soul. I love that man. He's an incredible actor and he's a legend. But there were challenges, but that's what we do in film. You talk about tough times. You talk about working in freezing cold temperatures. You talk about working with kids and animals and all these variables and budget and whatnot. But as creatives, you have to pivot, and you have to understand that the show must go on. And if you want the show to go on, and if you believe strongly in what you're doing, you find a way to make it, and you find a way to get it done. That Jillian and I just had this conversation the other day about longevity. What's longevity?
Yeah.
How do you define longevity in the arts?
And that's what Jillian, you want to do, right? Through cinema, you kind of like, Jillian? Oh, sorry. I was like, are you frozen again? I couldn't tell. You did a really good.
I'm muted. That's why.
Yeah, you did such a good impression of somebody who is frozen.
Oh, yeah, I'm an actor too. Not actually.
Yeah. How did you? Because you did your $150,000 budget before for your Circle of Steel, then you went to Lucky Star. How did you change and go through the process of budgeting, or someone helped you with this, especially when you have Terry?
Yeah, so yeah, I'm part of a company called Kino Sum, and there was another company involved from the BC side. It was an Alberta, BC, Canadian co-production, notable content. So we had a lot of different experiences coming together, and some people brought budgeting experience or financing experience, and other people brought more creative experience or line producing. So like actually putting, you know, the meat and potatoes of the film together on location. But it was a growing pain process, if I can be candid. Like this was, even though it's still not a huge budget film, it's still pretty low. It was the highest budget film that my production company had ever done, and there was a lot of growing pains. And you just have to like hold on to the car, the car that's driving really fast, and like uh sort of weather through the tough times, and also listen and the people who are more experienced than you, and hope that you can make it out on the other side. And I think we did a really good job of reacting and also being patient and focusing on the things that mattered, like not compromising on certain things. Um, but I just know there was no doubt, like even when things were really hard, there was no doubt in my mind that we were going to finish the film and it was going to be something. Um, and now that we're on the other side of it, and I've digested this whole Lucky Star experience, and we have a film, and the film is, you know, connecting with people, and it's going to be out there. I feel really proud, and I feel like uh, I feel relatively unscathed. Like I've definitely had some hard lessons, but I'm like excited to make the new, like a new project, and take all the lessons and make something that builds upon the last project. So I hope that answered your question. I'm just really excited to keep making stuff.
No, that's
Right.
good. And female directors, I'm sorry, I'm biased. And I also love the part because I grew up with classic films. So I love the part where you guys have, okay, I hope this is not a spoiler. You can stop me, just give me a hands up or something. But where there's a scene where they don't show too much intimacy toward Olivia and Terry's characters. And I was like, that's awesome. You didn't have to go all out on the, nudity or whatever, the actions and stuff.
I'm kind of two minds of it, and I'm curious what Terry thinks. Like,
Mhm.
on one hand, I really believe in full everything. Like, I there's a film called Antichrist, and Lars von Trier actually hired pornographic actors to be the body doubles for Willem Dafoe and uh, oh my gosh, the other Charlotte Gainsbourg, right?
Oh,
So,
Shannon.
and I love it. It worked perfectly for that film. But at the same time, I love Steven Soderbergh's work, and he's like, I just don't show full intimacy because you are end up just watching people be intimate. Like it takes you out of the film. And so with Lucky Star, that's what I felt. I'm like, we need to stay with these characters, and I felt like we just need to see intimacy without going into the full body double land.
Yeah. And you can hear it too. You can hear the intimacy in the scene. So yeah. Um, so Larry, do you have can we do the rapid questions yet, or do you want to talk about congratulations on doing the keynote some before you started your production, by the way. That's foresight, you kind of know ahead of time that you're going to be making more than one project.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm pretty both proud and like cringing at myself being like 24 and like having an intention. I'm like, we're having a company so we can produce the films that we want to make, and then eventually we can make bigger films with other companies if we get there.
Mm.
But I am proud of that person who like didn't know what she was doing as
Fearless.
an engineer in engineering. So
Will you direct something you didn't write?
yeah, for
Okay,
sure.
good.
I've done that too.
Checking.
No,
Uh,
well,
Go ahead.
so we'll just mention that, okay, Lucky Star will be screening in Canadian theaters through May 2025 and will be on video on demand starting from May 13th. So Summer, did you want to do your
Yeah,
questions now? Okay.
I'm gonna do the rapid questions. Okay, guys. Favorite color? Jillian?
Red,
Blue.
Okay, coffee or boba?
coffee,
Coffee.
Um, Pho or dim sum?
dim sum,
Dim sum.
Okay.
That's
Star Trek or Star Wars?
Star Trek,
This is always a good one, like to me.
Actually, I said Star Trek because my husband's into it. Like, if I can
Yeah.
speak for myself, Star Wars for sure.
And Terry's
Gosh,
Wilson's science fiction
I,
is kind of cool.
man, I've watched both so much. I just more recently though, oh God, Star Wars.
Okay, good. Um, Book or song that helps you, you know, motivate you for your just your life.
Whenever I'm feeling sad, I listen to Karen Carpenter.
I
Like,
love her. God, that's
yeah,
heavy music, dude. That's still heavy music.
Top of the World, I guess.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's much brighter instead of the other one. What about you, Terry?
Book Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, and music, like depending on my mood to pick me up, usually it's going to be like 80s, like rock, classic rock, like 70s, yeah, classic rock for sure.
Oh, when I
Yeah,
was
and
on
90s hip hop too. 90s hip hop is always, yeah, in the mix. 90s R&B.
when I was on Lucky Star every single day to set, I was blasting Tom Petty. What's that album called? New Moon Shoot. I, the one with Free Falling.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
I listened to that album every day going to set.
Hmm. Wow, I like that you love the classics, Gillian. Like,
Yeah.
um, um, okay. Well then, your superpower. Like, what would you want to have to help? Oh, don't want to give you too much.
Transport.
Yep, yep, yeah.
Fly.
Teleportation.
Yeah, I
What,
want to fly.
fly?
I want to fly. Yeah.
Of course you would. I tell you, like, I'm gonna with my tattoos, like streaming or theater.
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 Hmm. Mom or dad.
I can't pick favorites.
Wow.
No,
Wow. What kind of a question? You start trying to start a war, Summer?
no, no,
Jeez.
no, no,
Oh
no.
my
Just,
goodness.
just it's not versus. It's mom or dad. There's no rules, no guidelines. You guys can do both or whatever. I'm not setting you boundaries right now.
Man, I'll let Jillian go first on that one. That's a
No,
tough one.
I have both. I have two amazing parents, so I'll just say both.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Mom and
I gotta pass on that one too.
Sounds good. And three things to bring in a box if you had to escape.
Three things?
Yeah. Well,
dad.
okay, let me explain in context. When we had that horrible, tragic fires that happened in LA, and everybody was helping, like all the world communities were like really reaching out and help. People always say you got to bring this, that. They try to educate you on what to bring when you get something like that happening. So I was thinking, what would
Oh,
you?
like your laptop and your
Yeah,
wallet or
yeah,
something like
yeah.
that,
It
your
can be
passport.
practical
Okay.
and sentimental. I'm just curious to see what people say.
Okay, well, in the context of a fire, that helps me out a lot.
Yeah,
But
sorry.
my
I'm
present,
like, I'm
my
like, oh yeah, just out of a spaceship. Yeah, no, okay,
my
good.
cat. I have some jewelry, like family jewelry, that's been passed down. Like when I got married, I had a tea ceremony, and it's like, my that sort of thing. So some jewelry, my cat, and probably some photos or my laptop. One
Hmm.
of maybe my laptop.
Hmm.
Haven't backed this baby up.
Terry?
I would put my kids, a book, and a hatchet in the box.
Actually, that sounds like a Canadian thing.
Yeah, an axe. An
Yeah,
axe.
there you
Definitely an
go.
axe.
To
Yeah, my
chop
kids.
wood?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Survival, right?
Oh yeah. Three things. Are you kidding me? An axe is an absolute, yeah,
Oh, I
primary.
never thought of that.
With
Wow.
my kids. Yeah.
Thank you guys. Yeah.
Thank you.
Do you
Thanks,
mind?
Summer. Thanks, Larry.
Yeah. Hey, can I take a picture, y'all? Like I have to do it this way. Because
Sure.
I tried the other Zoom like, to make it clearer. Okay. Let me
All
see.
right.
It's so hard. All right. Say Lucky Star.
Lucky star.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you guys.
You guys have a great day. Thanks for your
All right.
time.
Really
Thank you.
appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Thank
Oh,
you.
and thank you, Nicole. Bye.
Thanks, Nicole. Bye.
Bye.
Stay tuned for the next episode. Pop the yolk and spread the love. Yolk is back.